business. I'm far from the same old same.
All right, we continue our interview now with Dan Charnas, author of The Big Payback, The History of the Business of Rap. Your book, obviously, The Big Payback, the title, well, the word payback, it implies that hip-hop made a fair amount of money off of it, so to say. Does this also suggest in some way that the money aspect of hip-hop actually has compromised the culture, or yes, no? I mean, what do you think?
In my book, I don't get into the sort of, and this is like a trope of hip-hop, this is a cliche of the way that we talk about hip-hop, like, well, that's a sellout, right? And what Jay-Z did Hard Knock Life, and he sampled Little Orphan Annie, and, that's a sellout. I look at it a completely different way. Jay-Z is one of the few, it was a part of a legion of young black artists who, unlike in any genre before, were able to actually control a bigger piece of their music, a bigger piece of their intellectual property, a bigger piece of their brand than ever before. Hip-hop did provide a new paradigm, I think, for young Americans, and specifically young black Americans, that, you don't have to sell out, water down in order to be successful. And if I could attribute that ethos to anyone, like if it started somewhere, I would say that it started with Russell Simmons. There's a great story in The Big Payback about Menachem Golan reading an article about very early on Russell Simmons in the Wall Street Journal. And Menachem Golan wanted to hire Russell Simmons to consult with him on a movie that he wanted to call, I think, Rappin', right? And Russell Simmons hears him out and says, you know what, if I make a movie with you, with what you want to do to this, I will lose everything that I've worked so hard for. And that's Russell Simmons in 1984,
Right.
I think we all became cognizant that white America was young white America specifically, was now officially ready to not have their stuff watered down for them. I think they were ready for the real thing. And the Afrocentric movement of hip-hop, I think, had a lot to do with that.
Why do you think hip-hop has not, or maybe it has, but has not been replaced, or why do you think a white face has not been the poster boy for hip-hop?
Well, of course, that was the great fear, right?
Right.
Whenever, it had been sort of, the American cliche of there's this stuff that, the black folks are doing. It's race records, it's this, it's something outside of the mainstream, and then white artists swoop in, white producers swoop in, and whiten it up. White performers re-record the songs that black performers do, and that's what gets played on pop stations. What hip-hop proved is that hip-hop produces some great artists out of New York, like Run DMC. And Run DMC becomes the first hip-hop act to sell millions of records. And you can't sell millions of records in America unless you have a white audience,
right?
Really. I mean, it's going to be a balance, but plenty of their fans were young white kids. And when the Beastie Boys came out, the refrain was, "Oh, the sky is falling." That's it. They're the Elvis of hip hop, and they did sell more than Run DMC. Run DMC's "Raising Hell" was 3 million. Beastie Boys was 4 million. But the Beastie Boys were handily topped by MC Hammer. Vanilla Ice, he sells less albums than Hammer and lasts, much less, has much less longevity than Hammer.
But Vanilla Ice was pretty much like it was just a marketing ploy, right? I mean, it's...
I'm sure Vanilla Ice and Tommy Kwan would contest that. He was a real person, and he did have some kind of talent. I mean, he was a great dancer, and he was a good rapper for his area of the country, and, he had both black and white fans, believe it or not, for that song. It just wasn't, up to the par of our New York, our New York aesthetics, shall we say. And Vanilla Ice wasn't needed. And again, it just showed how white programmers really seized on Vanilla Ice because they saw him again as this archetype. Okay, well, white rapper, we can deal with this, right?
Yeah.
But in the end, it wasn't the Vanilla Ices and the Beastie Boys that had the kind of longevity in pop music that we would expect of an Elvis. It were black artists did. And even to the extent that when Eminem came out, again, The Sky is Falling, here's the Elvis of hip-hop, and Eminem, of course, is a top seller. But listen, it's Jay-Z and Eminem, right?
Right.
Not Eminem. And it's actually Jay-Z, 50 Cent, and Eminem, not Eminem. So Eminem shares the field with black artists who are just as big, if not bigger, than him. And one Eminem did not beget a legion of white rappers basically taking opportunity away from their black counterparts. And that's the cultural difference in hip-hop. And frankly, I think it's the cultural difference in the hip-hop generation. We don't need white translators, right? And I'm an optimist. I think it's part of a changing America. I know there are people who would contest, my assertion, and we can have a long conversation about that. But I do believe that hip-hop changed things. And that, for sure, is one of the things that hip-hop changed.
While others explore to make it hardcore, I make it hard for whack MCs to even step inside the door.
All right, Dan, we have to leave it there. We'll continue this next week. Thanks for joining us so far. The book is The Big Payback, author Dan Charnas. I'm Tim Meinecke at the library. You can go to my website, don'trushthestage.com. This is Andy Don't Stop Radio.
Who claims to drop jewels, but for now you do the catching. I don't worry on what crew you run or what section of earth you reside. You're not even a man, so I don't deem it mandatory taking your pride. But I will, cause my man says so for the light. You cry keeping it real, yet you should try keeping it right.